I didn't play the games I expected to love this year. I played the games that stuck with me. Hey everyone, Kurosh here. And I gotta say, 2025 was a pretty weird, but in the best way possible year for gaming for me. In just the best way. I look back and I look at everything I played, everything I experienced, everything I tried, and my top 10 games of the year. I usually like get to the end of the year, and we're now at like it's today is the last day of the year, and I wanted to record this, and I usually have a good idea of what it's going to be. I have a strong sense of like, all right, we kind of have a sense, these are the games I'm going to like. But no year more than this year really surprised me in what would make those games special and what would stand out to me for this year. Almost none of the games that I was expecting or anticipating defined my year the way I expected them to. And that's what made, I think, this year so special to me. As a year, and even beyond just the games I'm going to be talking about today, this list isn't about what was the most successful, what was the largest hype behind it, what was talked about the most. It may in some areas. It's about those games that just stayed with me the longest, and the ones that I kept thinking about or gave me such a unique experience that I didn't get anywhere else, or I haven't experienced once anywhere else before. So let's get into it. This is my top 10 games of 2025. At number 10, I gotta talk about Dispatch. Dispatch earns this place because it's not loud, it's not flashy. It's because it's not loud or flashy. It's because it's a game about choice. I really feel like this is one of those games that, I mean, very much like the Telltale ways of things and how I talked to my friend Talcate Brigade earlier in the year. It's about choices. These games are always about choosing and having a narrative story, and what we choose defines the kind of lives we live and impacts those around us in ways we don't always expect. And when executed well, it becomes such a beautiful experience to engage with and to be a part of. I felt that the tension that came from each of the conversations, the timing, the perspectives of all the different characters in Dispatch was more than just like a shock and awe moment or a grab at a moment or something like that. It felt genuine. It felt like I'm part of this space, I'm part of this environment, and it just engrossed me that much more. And I think the best games do that. They just make you feel like you're in that world, you're invested. And it's very strong in not just its loud moments, but in its quieter moments. So many of the parts of this game that I love are not the moment of a choice, but the ramifications of that. There's so many parts where after a decision's been made or a shift in the social space has changed or whatever a plot point happens, the banter back and forth while you're dispatching just ever so subtly changes and shifts, and it's those moments that I was like, oh, how's this going to affect that, or what will happen the next time I go out on a mission, or what are the little just like cough or sneeze or turn away and you'll miss it kind of moment. That those are the moments that I really loved out of this the most, and why Dispatch is on my list. And it's those quiet tensions that I kind of want to then take it into a little bit more of the tactical tensions that we experience. Number 9 on my list is Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. It's no surprise I'm a big fan of tactics style games. Back when I streamed more regularly, Warhammer Chaos Gate and other games like it were like my favorite thing to do. A little bit of Fire Emblem on there as well, but it all kind of goes back for me to Final Fantasy Tactics. War of the Lions was where I experienced growing up, and then kind of going back to it later. And again, having an amazing conversation earlier this year with Talcate Brigade on Savepoint Stories, my podcast, shameless plug. this remaster felt like it was reconnecting to that formative part of my gaming kind of identity. I very much was able to kind of revisit that and rekindle those feelings and moments that I had growing up, but in a new light, because so much of what this remaster remake does is kind of bring new voices and new life to it with the voice acting, the performances, and some of the quality of life changes. It was just such a treat to revisit, and it still holds. Like, so many games today are inspired from it. Every time I talk about like a Metaphor Fantasio or any other tactics style type of game, I point back to what Final Fantasy Tactics did so right. And the story is so strong, like, you know, it goes into the political intrigue, the weight of it, the choices, not the choices so much, but more so, unlike Dispatch, it's not about like the larger choices you make with the game. It's more so about the choices you make about the experience you're having. What kind of team comp do you want to have? Do you want to build out a team of monks? Do you want to have a well segmented and set up team that's balanced? Or do you want to go full like tilt into DPS or something? Completely, like, it allows you to really just play it in that way, in your way. And that nostalgia isn't just what's carrying it, it's something that I feel like it respects and builds on. So I had to have it on my place for my games this year, and it was one of the ones that was such a pleasant surprise to find out was coming out this year, an experience. But going from legacy and reflection to then examining what sequels and iterations can do, I'd like to go to my number 8 game, which is Hades 2. Supergiant's first sequel of any game that they've ever done. That alone is a statement out of itself. And oftentimes I think we look at other mediums, and I've thought about this often. I'm sure many others can relate, but so much of other mediums of forms of art and media look at sequels as, I don't know, it's always like a push or pull, but I always see it as like the sequels aren't as good as the original. The original is always the GOAT. But I feel like with games, because they're learning and adapting and fine-tuning in the long way, the fact that they come in and Supergiant does a sequel to one of the best games of all time, some would argue, every like Hades was a moment in gaming history, and after Hades likes became a thing, much like Souls likes became a thing for Dark Souls. And I feel like Hades 2 has such a weight on it with that expectation of being a sequel, being the first sequel for the studio, but it nailed every one of the things that needed to be a sequel for. It needed to iterate, it needed to amplify, it needed to raise the roof of what that could be, and I thought this game does it so well. Now, I will admit, I haven't put the time I wish I did in this game this year. I haven't finished it. I've spent a lot of time with it, but so much of the experience I've had thus far has so confidently like imbued in me like what you can do, what it presents, what it does. It's just, I say it all the time, but it's starting to sound like a broken record, but confidence, when you see that confidence in what a studio develops, it really just like goes that extra mile. I think of like, hey, the presentation of the total package is such a strong message to put. And I think they do it so intentionally and so well and so just executed on all fronts so magnificently. I think we were excited about whatever Supergiant was going to do after Hades. The fact that they did a sequel was amazing. Whatever they do next is just like, you have carte blanche. You're like in that Christopher Nolan kind of era status of whatever you do, people are going to just love and eat up, and we know you're capable of executing. And this game is a evidence, exhibit A, B, C, D, and E of what that is. So next up is a game that didn't just play well, but it performed in the ways that I didn't expect a game to perform, and that's Absolum. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies if I'm not, but Absolum was a jam for me. This was everything I loved of Hades, of like what it's presenting and executing. Absolum is one of those games, I gotta just preface, it is a beat 'em up kind of just kind of like the old school TMNT, X-Men kind of games where you're just going side from left to right and just beat 'em up, you know, as the term genre kind of usually carries. But it did it so, it just felt so expressive in how you could do it. It felt like a fighting game mashed in. It felt like it went full tilt in that regard of what it was trying to do, and it just felt like a rock concert. It just continues to, no matter what character you pick, no matter what level you were at, no matter what changes you've made to your characters, you're pulling off combos, you're feeling like this just awesome band, and the music playing while you're going through it, just the energy just continues to multiply as you go further and further, or as you're just rocking through it. And I immediately on a run just want to just start again and just go back at it. There's not a moment that I just want to waste or sit by or just flounder. I want to be loud, I want to be stylish, I want to just continue and continue and continue. And a game hasn't done that for me in quite some time. This year there was a few, I will admit, but Absolum was one of those that just did it so well and so loudly that it just was hard to ignore. I couldn't put it aside. I just wanted to keep going. I just laser focused like a month or a few weeks to this game. It's great solo. It's great with friends. Yeah, it's such a great game. And that's why it's got a place on my list. In a similar way, this is very much like going from a spectacle and that feeling of the addictive feeling that it brought out of me. I mentioned there was a few games that got that out of me, and this next one, my number 6, hits that so strongly, and that is Ball Pit. Ball Pit hooked me, I think, immediately. If I were to try to remember, I blacked out probably when I played through most of this, but it taps into this addictive rhythm that hits very closely to Tetris, which is one of my all-time faves. Every run just ends with just one more, just one more, just one more, just one more. And when you're in the one more, you kind of just enter a locked-in mode of, you enter like a flow state, right? And it's so simple, it's so clean, it's so addictive, it's so satisfying. There's no fluff. It just nails it. It's fun. It's like, I could totally see Ball Pit being in an arcade if arcades were still like vibrant and thriving today. It is such a fun experience, no matter what combination of balls you're using, no matter what runners you have. Just the feedback loop was just so addictive and so satisfying in the moment to moment, and I could not put this game down. Like, it was so good, and it does it so well. And so many times I think, like, you see a game like this have the promise or have the potential to be something akin to a Ball Pit, but there's this need, or something necessitates adding something else, whether they feel the need of adding a narrative structure, or feeling the need to adding side quests, or feeling sometimes it's warranted, and that's great. But not all. Some of the quests we've grown to realize, like, fetch quests aren't fun all the time. Running errands isn't, like, if that's not what you're here for, why are you adding it? You're padding hours out sometimes, as they say. And nothing about Ball Pit is padding hours. Like, everything is serving something, and it's all fun and addictive and just pure joy. And that is why it's number 6 on my list. Sticking with the theme of loops, as addictive as this was in its moment to moment, there's my number 5 game is much more of a careful observation. It's much more methodical, while still keeping that addictive nature. And that makes number 5, my game is Blueprints. This game, I think much like Animal Well the year before it, is one of those games where the less you know, the better. And once you know things, then it's kind of like, oh, it changes how you experience the game. But it is it's a puzzle game. Like, you're going through every minute and it's puzzles on puzzles on puzzles. It's I love the layering of that, there's an immediate puzzle, and it's very direct, and it may be just forthright or just straightforward of get from point A to point B through whatever means you can muster. And in doing so, you come across smaller and little puzzles, but then you start seeing the greater tapestry of puzzles going on. And then even within that, you see an even larger web of tapestries. And it becomes a marvel of just game development to know that an individual, much like Animal Well, the comparisons are pretty apt, I think, but each does it in its own unique and expressive and creative way. But what Blueprints does so well is it just makes you marvel at what it's presenting, and it's not for everyone. I fully understand and admit that. Like, it even for me, I got to a point where I reached the end of the credits, which is just the beginning of the game in many ways, but that was a satisfying experience in and of itself. And I continued to enjoy it online by hearing what other fans and players were doing with what you can do later on in the game, and what other kinds of puzzles it presents. And it makes such a unique and like it's such a individual experience while also being such a collaborative experience. I have two friends that played this together collaboratively, where they were both kind of doing their own journey in parallel and just comparing notes or just talking out where they were at with things. And hearing that was such a Animal Well moment for me, of like, I would tell my friends X, Y, and Z, and they'd be like, oh wait, I haven't even gotten that yet, I got this. And that's such a fun part of these games, is like not so much the spoilers of a story beat, but also just the experience of what you can uncover, unravel. And I think Blueprints just realizes that so well. And progress isn't just about kind of moving forward. It's so much in with these types of puzzle games, and Outer Wilds is another, just a top example of this. Progress is also about understanding. It's about becoming more familiar with your environment, understanding the rules of which it operates, and realizing those things is so deeply rewarding and so earned. And I would liken it to how learning a Dark Souls boss and mastering those fights can be. This is in its own way, in the puzzle space, much more like that. And the fact that it makes it into kind of a roguelike aspect to it, or genre to it, is a fun way to just add that addicting feedback loop of like, let's do another run. And yeah, and that's why it's number 5 on my list. So we've hit a lot of curiosity and puzzles and addictive loops, but the next one is probably, I think, looking at it now, my only multiplayer game on my top 10. And so my number 4 is Arc Raiders. This game, much like probably, I think, 9 of the other games on my list, it was a surprise. I did not expect at all to say in December I would be addicted to and love and place on my top 10 of the year an extraction shooter. That is not at all ever been my jam, ever been my thing whatsoever. And here I am, continuously going back for more runs, doing, playing both solo and with friends, this game that came out kind of like, for me, out of nowhere. I know they've been doing a lot of early access this year and beta tests, and I got a little bit of it towards the tail end, but I feel like I was on the late end of understanding what this was and what it was different. And so much of what Arc Raiders was surprised me in so many ways. I've talked at length with some friends about this, but that chase there's the chase of the risk reward, right? And having it kind of be an entryway into that genre, and getting to experience what I think many have enjoyed from this genre. It's like, I think there's something fun about that, of so much of my growing up was always like, I'm this type of gamer. I only like this. That's it. This is all I like. I think I'm in a stage now in my life where I very much feel like the way a foodie would, where they just want to explore different experiences and tastes. I want to experience what people love about X or Y genre that I don't normally like. I don't normally play narrative, like strongly narrative driven games. I don't normally play extraction shooters. I don't normally play MMOs. Like there's genres that I just don't enter my mind of like, hey, this is a good time. This is what I want to spend my time doing. And Arc Raiders was one of those. And the fact that it presented itself in a way, and the developers presented it in a way where it can still be what it truly is, of like being those extraction shooters, mixed in with its own, other elements of it that I've talked at length about. But it's also approachable. It's allowing you to be like, hey, try it. Like, give this a shot. We want you to like see what is so fun about this. So being able to freeload out into things, being able to then take a module and like have a safety pocket to then I can like always make sure like if there's one thing I really want to walk out with, I can. Like those little caveats to making a game like this where there is a risk reward still. Like you could lose everything, but you at least walked out with one thing, or you went in with a loadout where the expectation wasn't even to leave with anything. And then to do that with friends, like, and then to see that social experience of, are people just naturally peaceful, or are they naturally, you know, adversarial in these servers? Because it just allows you to just choose that. It allows the players to naturally cycle through that, whether we go through a period of everyone being very, very violent in the game and just always being PvP driven, or being very peaceful if you're loading solo and having just this social language of understanding that, hey, we are like-minded, we're peaceful. I like that freedom, and I like experience. Like, this is the glimpse I needed to see this genre as it is, and how it reflects how, and also just how it can then reflect you of like, I've never thought of myself in these scenarios or situations. What kind of player am I? What kind of player am I by myself versus when I'm with friends? Like, does that change who I am? When you're hanging out with like one friend, and how your temperament might be or your behavior might be, versus when you're in a social like gathering or a larger party, don't you notice sometimes people behave differently, act differently, change? Art Graders feels like another example of that, of like how we adjust or adapt or change when depending on what the social environments can or can't be. And I marveled at that. I still find it very enjoyable. And I find it one of the most unique experiences I had this year. That's why it's on my list. To go from shared tensions and anxiety, I then want to segue into more of a personal tension and anxiety space in my next experience. My number 3 game is Consume Me. Consume Me resonated with me in a way that I don't think many games have executed in this way so aptly. This game captures stress, anxiety, bad habits, constraints, juggling priorities in life in a way that translates into games so directly and so accurately, I think. There's not necessarily like a metaphor or an abstraction of it. It's just very, this is what this, like, trying to manage your schedule with 18 responsibilities and wanting to do 2 or 3 fun things feels like this, and it goes through a week of that. Trying to better yourself while feeling embarrassed or shameful of other things you may have accidentally done or done intentionally feels like this. And I've struggled with many of these things growing up, and this character goes through different parts of their life, and I've struggled with these things today, with just managing your day-to-day and time, and like the gamification of that, and then to tell a personal story through that and follow that character was such a, there's something cathartic about it. There's something like, I don't know, it's just I grew to find it very endearing, and I loved it, and I reflected on my own, and I saw myself in the game and what the character was going through, and I connected with it in that way. And I think that is a very powerful thing for this medium and for this game that we don't always get to do. Oftentimes we're, like I said, I compare to other mediums often of like, you watch a movie, you read a book, and you're seeing their view, you're hearing their view, you're trying to put yourself in their shoes. This, like, engaging with it in the way in which games do, Consume Me just felt like I was going through those things, reliving certain parts of my own experience in lives, and I think that's just so rare, and it's so impressive, and it's so personal. I don't think this would all be on everyone's list, but I think there is something impressive and marvelous about a game just hitting with you, and that's why it's on my list. And I commend it for doing what it did. I really love this game, and it's one of my favorite games this year. So going from the emotional kind of space that game put me into, want to then segue into something that hits on it also taught me a personal journey of sorts. And so my number 2 game is Hollow Knight Silksong. This is a game, man. I've been jumping for joy for this game for some time. I've been anticipating it, and legacy is a big thing. I mentioned earlier with Hades. It reminded me why I fell in love with Hollow Knight in the first place. It refuses to let me, dwell or sit in the comfort. Like, there are moments you earn your moments of comfort. You earn your moments of peace or your moments of power. Your combat, your movement. It forces you to embrace the discomfort in ways that, again, I like to take games with me where I go, and I think as like when a game does that well, when a game does what it's doing well, I both enjoy it in the moment and I can enjoy it later. And Hollow Knight Silksong was one of those games where in the moment, Hornet and her journey and this world of Farloom and all the characters you come across was so engrossing. It was such an epic that just the scale of it kept getting grander and grander and more fantastical and more the melancholy is there, the epicness is there. It felt like a space opera. It feels like your greatest, like the Dune in some ways. And at the same time, it also feels like it's asking me, be like, hey, we're having a conversation. I want you to engage with me in these ways. What do you speak my language and do I speak yours? Like, how do we do this dance? And I think I would equate it to, like, you see a lot of like Souls-like games ask a similar thing. They want you to operate on their terms. I think Silksong does it in a way where I just kind of understand it better. And I love myself a Souls-like game as much as the next person, but there's something about the world and the way this game speaks that I love and I connect with. And I was worried that legacy of Hollow Knight would kind of weigh on it too much, or give me a false illusion of what it could be or what it is. But it didn't. It very much recognizes that and becomes its own thing, and I loved it for what it was, and I loved it for how it asked me to engage with it and what it wanted of me and what I wanted of it. And like, it felt like this dance, and it was one of those experiences that I won't forget in this year or in some time. It was one of the best experiences I had this year, and I am so excited for the DLC next year. Yeah, this game hit so well, but I'm also glad to retire my clown nose, so that was a win too. And that brings me to my number one game, and this one is probably when it wasn't what I expected when it first was announced or when I was hearing about it, but once I experienced it, I think it was hard pressed to be unseated from that seat. And this is the game that stayed with me the longest this year, and it hit me the most, like many, I think, the most powerfully, and that's Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, my number one game. I think, like, and I've been saying this throughout this whole video of, like, games want you to engage with them. It's a conversation, it's a dance, it's an experience, it's something. A good game, I think, can change your outlook. It can impact how you then, like, when I played Fallout 3, when I played Knights of the Republic, when I played Super Smash Brothers for the first time, like, these games were like just moments of my life. It was pre that, post that, like, they became pillars of, like, oh, everything I experienced until that experience. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is definitively one of those moments for me where it's so much of what I enjoy. I love, again, turn-based RPGs. Last year, Metaphor ReFantazio was one of the best experiences I had, and it had such a beautiful story, and the moment to moment was so fun and engaging, and it had this job class system, so it weaved it all together so well. Clair Obscur does that, and then the story, I think here, just what it asked me, like, just what it asked any player, just the premise of it had the potential. I remember I talked about this in my preview way back when it was before it had launched, and I feel like that story had such potential, and it took that potential and did not dilute it. It did not. It just hammered it so hard and so far at every level, at an individual character levels, from Mael to Gustav to Verso to everyone in the world of Clair Obscur, to the larger story, to the grander metaphors of the story and the themes and tones of the world can suck. The things in your life can be hard or sad or gruesome or painful, and it how we choose to respond and how we choose to grieve and how we go through those things in games and in life and in whatever is such an important part of it. It's not just that those occurred, it's that you also make a choice, whether you know or not, whether it's subconscious or intentional. There's an aftermath, a choice or a decision or an action made, and it affects both you and those around you. And I don't know if I need to, continue to talk about this game at length, but it does what it does so beautifully and so just elegantly. It makes it look effortless, and I think that's when you're in like greatness, when you see something just done so flawlessly, so beautifully, so elegantly, so amazingly that you're like, that looks easy, and it's not. It's the fact that it got made, and that like every one of these games got made, just it tells you something about the people who work, how hard they worked, what they put out there, what they created, and you just think about them, both the creation, the impact it has on you, but also then the making of how it came to be, how it came to fruition, what labor of love was it that made it what it was. And that's, again, like I kind of want to say, as the 2025 as a whole is one of my favorite years in games. It reminded me of why I love this medium so much. It's such a labor of love, and when you get to see the fruition of that labor, it reminds you that it's more than just like okay, pop in the next one. It's not just a consumable thing that you just take in. You engage with it, you experience it, you then become inspired, or you then change something. It changes something in you, and then you put that out there, and that cycle feeds back into things sometimes, directly or indirectly. This year was just there's so many that I didn't even mention that also felt that way. It's just, when boiling it down to 10 is hard, and I like to give myself that framework, just because it is there's a fun commonality of it, because you can have that conversation. I love those conversations of like, what's your top 10 and why. It helps me understand you as a person and what resonates with you, what doesn't, what your experiences were. And I want people to feel the same about me, like when they hear my list and what I loved and didn't love. I think so much of a top 10 kind of boils down to that, of understanding one another, and learning things that you may not have experienced. Like, again, with the food thing of like, oh, I didn't even hear about that. I should try that. I like your taste in games. I want to go. That's like why I love top 10s in movies, top 10s in books, top 10s. It's a chance for more discovery. It's a chance to see something you didn't see, hear something you didn't hear, learn something you didn't learn. Like, there's so many different things out there, and there's so many beautiful, and hearing it from a view that is so passionate about it. Again, like why I wanted to do Savepoint stories and hear about what games that mean so much to people. When you hear it from that lens of love and passion and excitement, I think there's a tone, or not a tone, but there's a note, or like a chord it hits that strikes unlike anything else. Like, it's just I chase it. When you when someone's just passionate about something and they speak from that passion, and they talk about whatever it is, baseball, books, crafts, some woodwork, engineering, aircrafts, whatever it may be. If they talk from a place of passion, I think you hear there's a sincerity and a genuineness that just comes out, and it's unlike anything else. Yeah, that's So to cap, that is my top 10. That is my, these are my 10 favorite experiences this year in 2025. It's been fun reflecting on them. I'd love to hear what you think of any of these games if you've experienced them, and what your specific journeys were with them, or what your favorite games this year were. Please leave a couple, like whatever jumps to you, whatever you'd like to share. I'd love to know. I feel like that's part of what's fun about this, is that conversation that comes after, for those who come after, you know, as a game so aptly puts it. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please check out some of my other stuff, my other videos recently I've been putting out. And I'm looking forward to the new year, new games, new experiences. But until then, I'll see you on the next Save Point.